Imagine living in a time and place where you could be accused of a terrible crime witchcraft, even if you were completely innocent. You had almost no way to prove your innocence. If you confessed, even if it was a lie, you might go free. But if you denied the charge, you'd likely be found guilty and executed. What would you do? This was the horrible reality faced by the people of Salem, Massachusetts, from February 1692 to May 1693. The Salem Witch Trials were a dark period in American history, filled with fear, superstition, and injustice. 20 people lost their lives, while many others had their lives destroyed by false accusations and public suspicion. It was a time when being different or unpopular could mean your life was at risk. In the winter of 1692, strange events began to unfold in Salem. Two young girls, Betty Paris, 9 years old, and her cousin Abigail Williams, 11 years old, started behaving oddly. They screamed, had fits, contorted their bodies in strange ways, and complained of feeling like they were being pinched or pricked by invisible needles. The village doctor couldn't find a medical reason for their symptoms. Instead, he concluded that they were under an evil hand. In other words, he suspected witchcraft. News of the girls' behavior spread quickly through the village. Fear of witchcraft, already deeply rooted in the minds of the villagers, began to grow. Soon, other young girls in Salem started displaying similar strange behaviors, such as throwing themselves into violent fits, speaking in strange voices, and claiming they saw ghostly apparitions. As more children began acting out, people became convinced that evil forces were at work. The frightened villagers wanted answers. The young girls claimed that 3 women were responsible for their torment. Sarah Good, a poor pregnant woman with a young daughter. Sarah Osborne, who had been absent from church for a long time and was involved in a lawsuit. And Tituba, an enslaved woman from the Paris household. The authorities quickly arrested these women. They were easy targets because each was somewhat isolated from the community. During questioning, Tituba eventually confessed to practicing witchcraft, claiming she did so under orders from the devil. She also implicated the other 2 women, likely out of fear and pressure from the authorities. This confession intensified the villagers' fear and further convinced them that witchcraft was real and dangerous. With Tituba's confession, a wave of panic swept through Salem. People began accusing their neighbors, often to settle old grudges or to protect themselves. The authorities started arresting more people based on flimsy evidence, and anyone seen as different was in danger of being accused. Neighbors turned on each other, friends and family members became suspicious, and the trials began to consume the village. By the time the trials were fully underway, the court accepted all kinds of questionable evidence. The most infamous type of evidence was called spectral evidence. This meant that if someone claimed they saw the spirit of an accused person attacking them or performing witchcraft, this claim could be used as evidence in court, even though no one else could see it. The accused had no way to disprove these ghostly sightings. Another factor that made the trials even more dangerous was that many of the jurors and judges were connected to the accusers, which created conflicts of interest and led to biased decisions. Anyone who spoke out against the trials, including respected figures like Judge Nathaniel Saltonstall, could also fall under suspicion, which discouraged people from voicing their doubts. Between February 1692 and May 1693, more than 100 people were imprisoned, with 20 eventually executed, 14 women and 6 men. Most of those who confessed to witchcraft were spared, as they often provided more names of supposed witches. But those who refused to confess, holding firmly to their innocence, faced a grim fate. One particularly tragic case was Sarah Good, who maintained her innocence throughout her trial. Her young daughter was also imprisoned and eventually testified against her mother, likely due to the intense pressure. Sarah gave birth to a child in prison, but the baby died, and shortly afterwards, Sarah was found guilty and executed by hanging. Another victim, Giles Corey, refused to plead guilty or not guilty, fearing that a guilty verdict would strip his family of their property. In response, he was tortured by being pressed under heavy stones until he died, a brutal method known as pressing. By spring of 1693, the witch trials had spiraled out of control. Accusations had started to spread beyond Salem to neighboring towns, and even powerful figures became targets. When the wife of the governor of Massachusetts was accused, he decided enough was enough. Governor William Phipps ordered an end to the trials, pardoning the remaining accused and halting further arrests. The courts later admitted that the trials were a mistake, and they offered apologies to the families of the victims. In the years following the trials, many began to realize the terrible mistakes that had been made. Apologies were issued, and the families of the accused were given compensation. Historians have since studied the events to understand how the fear and superstition of the time could lead to such tragic consequences. Some people have speculated that the strange behavior of the girls could have been caused by natural factors, such as ergot poisoning, a type of mold on rye that can cause hallucinations, or even an illness affecting the brain. But the true reason for the behavior remains unknown. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.